Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian Dean, an incoming junior at the Penny W. Stamps School of Art and Design, minoring at the Ross School of Business through the Innovate Blue ENTR program. I'm so glad you could join us today for our Stamps at Home event with Michigan Ross, the intersection of art, business, and non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. We're eager to hear from our panel of alumni, and the event will run until around 4:15 p.m. We'll hold a question and answer period at the end of the session and encourage you to submit questions for our panelists by using the chat function on your taskbar. Now, before we get started, a few housekeeping items. You've all been muted upon entry, and we ask that you remain so to provide an equal listening experience for all of our attendees. And we strongly advise that you select speaker view on the right side of your screen for an optimal viewing experience. Live captioning is also available during today's program. To view captions, please click on closed caption at the bottom right of your screen and then choose show subtitles. We will also be sharing a recording of today's presentation, including captioning, on our website and our social media channels. For technical assistance at any time during today's event, please use the chat function to send a direct message to our team. My fellow U of M student Laine Brotherton and Stamps staffer Melissa are ready and available to help. Okay, with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Stamps Professor Osman Khan, our moderator this afternoon. He's currently an associate professor at the Stamps School of Art and Design, and his work plays and subverts the materiality behind themes of identity, homeland, decolonization, social and public space through participatory and performative installations and site-specific interventions. His work has been shown at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Detroit, the Shanghai Biennale, DeWitt Center for Contemporary Art, Ars Electronica Center, Socrates Sculpture Park, among others. And he's also a recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship, an Art Matters grant, and the Knight Foundation Arts Challenge grant. An exhibition he co-curated is currently up at Stamps Gallery called Halal Metropolis, which explores the facts, fictions, and imaginaries of the Muslim populations in Detroit and Southeast Michigan as viewed through historical research, documentation of current conditions, and explorations of future desires. It's on display until July 20th at the Stamps Gallery, and I recommend checking it out if you're in the Ann Arbor area while you still can. All right, Osman, take it away.
Thank you so much, Christian. So it's a pleasure to have everyone here today, and I would like to welcome everyone to this event, and especially thank all the alumni panelists for being here with us today. So we're going to be talking about NFTs and this sort of perhaps overly hyped idea. So questions: is it a bubble that this NFT thing? Is it all about mushrooms, this non-fungible token, or is it something quite different? Is it the future of art and art trading? So our panelists will sort of have a discussion on that, and we'll see what it's all about. So I thought let's get started with the panelist introductions. And I thought the best way would be for each of you to introduce yourselves and let the audience know where you guys are coming from. So Rachel, I think we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you. And thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Rachel Gutnick, and I graduated from Michigan Ross MBA program just last year. So go blue, I miss it. And when I left Ann Arbor last year and moved into my new home, my husband and I actually commissioned a piece of art from a friend of his that was an abstract artist. Through that process of helping work with an artist designing a piece of art, we realized there's no centralized place to go if you were looking to commission an artist and work with them to create a custom piece. So that's where the company that I co-founded, Teal Canvas, was born, from that Teal Canvas that we had created for us. So basically, we launched in February, and it's a site where you can connect with over 70 artists across styles and price points, and commission a piece of art. So we're a tech-enabled art platform, and that's why I'm excited to be here today to talk about NFTs and what we're seeing in the space. So thank you all.
Thank you, Rachel. Chelsea, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea. Thank you for having me. I launched Tap In Collective in 2012 with a goal of bringing more accessibility and transparency to the art market. We connect emerging artists on the rise with collectors, and we're using NFTs. We're using NFTs as certificates of authenticity. So when somebody wants to buy an original piece of art, we are attaching an NFT COA with the piece so that it's registered on the blockchain. We can get more into that later, but that's how we're doing it.
Thanks, Chelsea. Darren, welcome.
Everyone, thanks. Thanks for having me. My name is Darren Wolfberg. I'm CEO of Blockchain Triangle. We are a company based in Bermuda with offices in New York and the UK. And we've been involved in NFT really from the standpoint of helping our clients think through really how are they going to access the market. We have one client called Busi, which is Blockchain Made Easy. They're focused on the athletic market and allowing entertainers, musicians, and artists to really, as Chelsea said, authenticate and create a pool of inventory that that they either would like to monetize or create value amongst their fans. So looking forward to discussing that further and answering any questions along the way.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before we begin, we're going to take a really quick poll, audience poll. So just wanted to ask the audience, what's your current level of knowledge about NFTs? So I think there's just 3: newbie, intermediate, or you're already an expert. I'll just give everyone a few minutes. No, not even a few minutes, maybe a minute. So fantastic. Our polls are in. About 50% of our audience consider themselves a newbie and about 40% intermediate. So we might get some tougher questions, but let's get into it. Yeah, so, as I was sort of hinted at, there's been this huge buzz around NFTs, especially with the art world, especially with the astronomical prices that are being sort of thrown around for some NFTs, as we know, which probably created the hype. But maybe one of the questions that keep coming up are what are they? And Darren, since you have such a kind of deeper knowledge about blockchains, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the ecosystem, like what is a blockchain, what's cryptocurrency, what is NFT, how are they related, or just explain it to the audience. Sure. What the hell are we really talking about?
Yeah, so really the way I see it, there are 4 key parts to the kind of blockchain world. You first has cryptocurrency, that is the most mature. Those are things like Bitcoin and other currencies that have monetary value. The second would be stable coins or CBDC, central bank digital currencies. Those essentially, there's firms like Tether or US dollar coin. They each have some sort of custody that supports the value of the underlying coin. So one USDC coin is $1. Tether, it's a bit more complicated as far as what's supporting Tether, but 70% of the assets are US dollar, and then there's a basket of other assets that make up the other 30%. The next segment is NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and that is really a place where people who have intellectual property, intellectual capital, that they're able to really memorialize and authenticate a unit of it. So that can be a painting, that could be a piece of music, that could be, statistics from an athlete. And essentially, those are tokens that can be traded or sold, and then the recipient can take ownership of those and put them in their portfolio. And the last segment is the securities segment of blockchain, which is smart contracts, which memorializes the relationship between an investor and an issuer. So those, I think, are the 4 big categories. And certainly there are various service providers in that ecosystem for the different categories that you're in.
Great, thanks, Darren. So Rachel, at Teal Canvas, I know you feature a lot of artists with different styles, including physical manifestations as well as perhaps even digital. I'm trying. So I was wondering if you could share with us why NFTs might be important to a business like yours, and the artists and designers who are working with you. How are they feeling about using NFTs as a way to, in a way, distribute and sell their work?
Yeah, so we just launched our company in February, and we've been paying close attention to the NFC space, how it's disrupting art, and what the implications might be for our business model. And really, we saw kind of two main use cases that could work with kind of what we're doing at Teal Canvas. The first one, since the experience of working directly with an artist to create a unique piece is part of our value prop. We've considered offering custom NFTs as kind of an additional product offering to what we currently offer. So basically, you would come to our site and find an artist that creates digital work, and they would be able to mint that asset as an NFT for you to have. The end product would be a digital asset that you could then, down the line, if you sell it, the artist would then be able to get royalties off of that NFT. So that business model we like because it rewards the artists for their work down the line. Whereas if they were to, create a one-of-a-kind physical piece for someone, and then that customer later sells it, the artist doesn't get to see any of that revenue. So that's an interesting application of NFTs that we've considered. However, we aren't sure if the type of person right now that's seeking and buying NFTs is the same kind of core customer that is coming, that's looking for a custom piece of art for their wall. So that's why we haven't tried to pursue that angle. And we haven't heard of anyone else doing custom NFTs. That's not necessarily kind of the core value prop of this, the market and the way that NFTs are often being created and bought and sold currently. The second offering, since creating a one-of-a-kind piece is part of Teal Canvas, we've considered, could we create a digitized version of the physical asset to then mint as an NFT? So if you're working with an artist, they create, a beautiful abstract for you, they could, or a digital piece for you, we would then mint that. So you have a digitized version of your one-of-a-kind physical piece. So then you would own both assets, the piece that's on your wall, and then a digitized NFT that you could have in your digital wallet and hope that it appreciates in value. So definitely our artists are interested in exploring this more, some more than others, which is why we haven't kind of rolled this out as a standardized offering on our site, but definitely keeping this in mind as we expand and decide where to put our time and money as a startup.
Great, thanks, Rachel. I've been thinking, because I know a lot of the NFTs start from the sort of digital art world. Not that that's the only place, but in the art space. And one of the things there, and we can think about like Walter Benjamin's art in the age of mechanical reproduction, where a digital asset can be reproduced millions of times without any loss. So the whole idea of an NFT is creating a uniqueness. And Chelsea, I'll get to you, because in a way that certificate of authenticity suddenly is placed on an asset that could be infinitely reproduced. So I'm kind of curious, is it more just how does that affect kind of the art world in a way to think about that? And the other thing, Rachel, you brought up that was interesting is, once you do have it as an NFT, the resaleability and the ability for artists to get money at every selling is something quite unique. We know most of these auctions, the artists themselves are no longer making any money off those sales. It's among collectors only. So there's something very interesting, but there is another part, which is it is capitalizing on something that in a way it falls into the sort of capitalist system by putting something that is infinitely reproducible into a kind of unique situation. So Chelsea, so to you, and Rachel, absolutely can respond in a second. I was just thinking about your group and creating you sort of alluded to certificates of authenticity, which have always existed in art. right?
Right.
No matter what artwork you buy, you need a certificate to say this is authentic work by this person or that person.
Right.
So why something moved to NFTs? What's the benefits to you?
Right. And just for the sake of the audience, we're talking about two different things. One is a digital artwork that is minted as an NFT, and that is a unique piece. And the whole beauty of an NFT is that each NFT, each non-fungible token has a unique number, so it can never be replicated. And because of how the blockchain works, that's the beauty of that in particular. And what we've done at Tapin is we have taken that technology and the ability to authenticate and paired it with physical works. So today, in the documentaries, fakes, like all of that are out there. And so if the art world takes on NFT COAs as a expectation, then that could change everything in terms of how we authenticate pieces, because there couldn't be forgery. If an NFT COA travels with a physical item, then you're achieving two things. One is the authenticity of that object, and two, in the way that Tapin does it, which sounds similar to what Rachel's doing, is in the smart contract, when you buy a piece, the NFT COA is going from the artist's wallet to the buyer's wallet. And in that way, when the buyer of the artwork sells the piece again, the royalty will go to the original wallet, which is the artist's wallet. And so every time there's a trade in the smart contract, the artist is given a percentage of that sale, which could be life-changing for the artist. That's not something that we've been able to achieve before. Did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think Rachel, you also had some comments on kind of how this is affecting.
Yeah, no, I heard a really interesting analogy recently about how, when I first heard about NFTs, you think, why would someone pay all this money for something that anyone can view online? But really, with NFTs, it kind of is a different model where sometimes the popularity and more people seeing it can drive up the price. And the analogy used was the Mona Lisa. By more people knowing about it, it kind of creates this hype and more people want to see it, and it becomes this higher value thing. So with NFTs, similarly, it's all about that authenticity of ownership. So while everybody can view it, the person who's willing to buy it knows that, I am the owner. This is authenticated through the NFT. So it's a little bit of a shift in thinking that we have to take when considering NFTs and how they're getting popular, and how it's about that ownership of the original, and you're the one owner of it with that NFT.
So one other thing that sort of I've been thinking about, especially with the works that have been hyped so much, it's really more the NFT and the value, and very little conversations are about the artwork itself. Like, why is this a good artwork, and why is it worth so many million or hundreds and thousands of dollars? So kind of two questions, and Darren, you can also chime in. As far as investing in NFTs, do we see them as having a future? Is it just hype, just a bubble? And then why aren't people talking more about, let's say, the art that's, especially the ones that are, getting these crazy prices like Babel or, what is it, the Neman cat, that has cultural significance, but, so I'm just curious, we're talking about it, but the artwork doesn't get talked. But then again, is it worth it as an investment sort of opportunity? Open it to anyone, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I think from the standpoint, and I'll use an analogy, certainly this is definitely the case in the art world, but growing up, I used to trade baseball cards. And baseball cards are I think somewhat analogous, where scarcity is a key component to the value of the underlying asset. So if there's multiples of the same asset, there's going to be less value for that. But where you have scarcity or uniqueness, whether it's Bubble and his first, auction, that will always be the first auction item of an NFT. That's not going to change in the future. Same thing with Jack Dorsey's first Twitter. That's not going to change in the future. I think ultimately what it does is there are unique components of value that do get created. But you'll also find that it's almost logarithmic, where there's so few that are so high, but so many that are so low. And if you bastardize your supply and you overuse your supply, you're just going to hurt the value for that end asset down the road. But I think it's a great opportunity to provide an additional mechanism of monetization, of authentication, for all people that are part of this artist community, whether it's, physical art, digital art, entertainers, musicians, etc. I do think it's a new tool in the toolkit for everyone to become more productive.
Chelsea, Rachel, how are the artists and designers you work with feeling about it? But also, how do you guys feel about some of this, the artwork itself? Not like Darren said, it's a fabulous new platform or tool in the toolkit, but the fact that, again, scarcity is enough to create value. I'm thinking about I don't know if you guys know about the tulip mania in 1600 Dutch society, where they were paying millions for a rare tulip, and then the bubble, of course, burst because everyone realized they were in tulip madness. But so is the artwork actually worth it? And some of it is, right? It's like you said, the baseball cards. I think Honus Wagner is one of the tops, but he was a great player. So there's a double thing. It's not just that it's rare, but it's a rare card by.
He was a great player, but there were only 4 of them. Right.
But what if you had 4 of a player who didn't matter, right?
So I'll say that there's a firm called PSA, and they authenticate a lot of collectibles, and even for commons, but are in mint condition, so very high grade. Those are still worth, hundreds of dollars, because there's a uniqueness of the condition that they're in, because an old card is deemed that there's a lot of wear and tear on it. So those that don't have a lot of wear and tear are unique in and of themselves, and that's why they have that value. One other comment to make about that, there's a very famous hedge fund manager whose name is Steve Cohn, and he actually bought PSA. So just as a fun fact, institutional finance is entering this world, and he's also a tremendous art collector as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, when you talk about the sports, the baseball cards thing, there was a level of things getting lost, things getting damaged, and that doesn't happen in the digital realm unless you unfortunately forget your wallet password or something. But so there is that level of scarcity that doesn't happen, in that you don't have damage and loss over time. But so something definitely for people going into the space to be aware of. Once it's there, it's really there. And then in terms of the artwork, I think that just like any new medium, whether it was photography or video, there is a moment and time where artists are really excited, and there needs to be exploration, and I think that's what's very exciting about today, that it's going to be an evolving space. And as so much of our lives go digital and we enter the metaverse, there's a lot to explore and discover. So I'm excited about it. And I think in terms of the, what it can do for the provenance of artwork, that's something that's really powerful for the artwork, for the artist, and something that I hope that the art world does embrace.
Yeah, to build off Chelsea's point, NFTs are giving digital artists really a way to monetize and get their name out there in a way that might not have existed prior. And while I think that there is somewhat of a bubble going on, in Q1 2020, NFT sales, topped $2 billion, which was up 20x from the prior quarter. So clearly we saw this huge uptick. And then since then, sales have gone downwards. The amount of transactions have stayed somewhat stable, kind of showing that some of the hype might have died down, but there are definitely implications for this technology, within the art space. And then I think what's going to give it staying power is the implications beyond the art space. So as this technology gets used, not just in collectibles, but, smart contracts in potentially if you buy your car and it's minted, that contract as an NFT. And as this technology gets more ingratiated into different areas of our lives, I think then more people might become more comfortable with this technology and might be more interested in investing in NFTs in this way. So I think, a lot of these, the NFT sales that you hear about in the news that go for millions of dollars and had a lot of hype around them, a lot of them had to do with, important pieces that were early to the NFT movement, or, celebrities were attached to them, such as Jack Dorsey's tweet. That doesn't mean, that's what the average NFT is going for. So while those are making headlines and they're actually great because it's drawing a lot of attention to the space, I think some of that is going to die down, but then it'll get a little bit more normalized for more artists to participate in this type of art and potentially more buyers to want to collect and, own digital pieces.
And if I could just make one other comment, it's probably not a coincidence that the peak of NFT pricing and sales was the peak of Bitcoin pricing. So there's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where those that are part of the crypto community want to support other evolving new parts of the community. So as they feel more flush with more money, they're more flippant with how they spend their money, is maybe one way to think about it. But it still doesn't take away from the overall utility that's there. So, just like in markets where, there's hype cycles, there's depression cycles, don't expect something different in the NFT world. However, the utility is still the utility.
So maybe there's a question to everyone. Let's say I want to have an NFT. Where do I start? How do I do it? Help me think it through. What is the first step? What am I supposed to do? Do I come to someone like you, Chelsea and Rachel, or Darren? What do I need to be setting up? Just walk us through the kind of process of setting up an NFT, and then some future things. I think the sort of contractual stuff is really important, that future sales can still be tied. So just help walk the audience through setting up an NFT, or whatever that means. Do you even set it up? I'll play stupid here.
Darren, do you want to take it? Or I know for artwork.
You go ahead, but I'll fill in after.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's I'm sure there's plenty I don't know, but I do know that from an artist perspective, there are platforms like Foundation. If you don't know it, check it out. They support artists in producing, they make it super simple to create a digital, once you've created a digital artwork, to upload it onto their platform, and they will mint it for you. So I think that's a very simple thing. Darren can probably get into more of setting up your Coinbase wallet and everything you need beyond that.
Yeah, no, so I think there's, there is a proliferation of platforms that are out there that can provide NFT services. Just one thing to bear in mind, depending on the protocol that you're using, keep an eye on the fees that are associated with that, so you don't end up on the wrong side of that. But yeah, you as a consumer would set up a wallet, or you as the producer would set up a wallet, and you would create and mint your NFT. It'll go into your portfolio, and then you can stage it into an ecosystem to sell. Also, Facebook, Instagram are also popular means of distribution. But I would also say that you're starting to see some specialization. Not that the technology is different, but you're having communities that are starting to specialize on specific parts of the ecosystem that they care about. So in one area, you have music, where a lot of labels are starting to look at this and musicians are starting to look at this. And is there a way that they can get more economics back? Can they retain the masters of their files or their music? Same thing in art. You're going to see communities of art and communities of athlete. And one of our clients is creating a platform called Athlete Chain, which basically provides all of the athletes that are part of players associations to create their own NFTs. And if they want to sell them and proceeds go to charity, you're able to do those things. So it's a pretty exciting time. But Rachel, do you want to fill in on anything that I missed?
Yeah, I think you explained it pretty well. And there are several platforms out there, like Chelsea mentioned, Foundation, there's OpenSea, Rareable, Super Rare. All these different platforms are popping up that are marketplaces for NFTs. So I think it's like, take a look at the platform, see which seems like it would fit, the type of art that you're putting out there, see what prices, things are selling for, and keep in mind that that gas fee that Darren mentioned, which is kind of the cost you're going to pay to mint that NFT. Those are all considerations to keep in mind when deciding to go this route.
So talking about cost, I know there's a huge ecological cost to this whole world of
I think Osmond froze.
Yeah, but the ecological cost of NFTs, Darren, I think that's for you.
Yeah, yes. There's definitely an ecological cost. I would say it's more in the minting side, so more from the Bitcoin, the Ethereum side of the world, more of your core blockchains. But from the standpoint of the minting cost of an NFT, I don't see that as much of an issue as you would see. Oh, I think he's back. Is he back?
He's probably going in and out.
So anyway, I think there's less impact from an NFT perspective. Certainly when you're getting into more of the cryptocurrency, the mining related components, you will see that environmental impact.
Yeah, one thing I would add, I don't know the really technical, in the weeds way that this works, but Ethereum is kind of the big culprit that that's ragged on for its carbon emissions, because the model that they use to mint things on the blockchain is called proof of work. And basically they have these machines that are solving puzzles as a way to kind of keep up the security, so that when you are minting another block to the chain, it makes sure it's protected and authenticated, and that's what's causing all the emissions. Certain other blockchains, such as Flow, run on a different type of model. It's like escaping me right now, the name of it, but it doesn't use the machines in the same way to solve the puzzles as a way of doing security, so that it has a lesser, lesser carbon emissions, less energy use. I read that Ethereum is considering, is there a way for them to switch models of how they're, creating their chain, but that seems like a huge undertaking. But I think there is some hope within the industry that there are other ways of, leveraging blockchain and lowering the carbon footprint down the line. So I'm hopeful that can happen.
And, I'm also, for some of the people that are in mining, you're starting to see them do a couple different things, either get their mining sources from renewable sources, or they are, one of the other key things is the market is somewhat self-repairing in that regard. So you do see new chains that come to market that address some of these issues that come up. That takes time. And I agree, you know, Ethereum 2.0 will be interesting to see when it comes out, and it should address some of those issues. But in the meantime, you've got second generation smart contract technology that's coming to market, and it's great technology. So.
So before I kind of open it up, just one last question as we knew, my Zoom froze and I got kicked off. So since we are dependent on technology, where do you think the future of this is? Is it a really, let's say you know, can you lose your NFT? And what does that mean? Can it be corrupted? Right, as we're talking about data ultimately. So what are the safeguards in, let's say, if we are investing in it, either as the investor, but also as an artist, where I know there might be future sales? What are the points of failure that one is potentially seeing in this as we gather? And of course, it's a technology, so it'll keep trying to improve itself. So that aside, what are potential places of failure or already things where we're seeing headaches in the technology?
Well, I'll answer it. Look, the whole part about the ledger is that it's immutable. So, you know, once it's there and it's consensus network, that's where it lives, and it can always be accessed and referenced. Certainly, if you lose your keys, just like you lose your password to a custody or some other venue, you're SOL. But maybe hold on to those keys very carefully. And certainly there are, you know, horror stories as it pertains to Bitcoin. You know, hopefully when you buy that digital Mona Lisa, you're not going to lose your key, or maybe you keep a copy of your password somewhere. So I think there are some probably very simple ways to address some of the inherent risks, but also, you know, ultimately it is immutable.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, I think you touched on a lot of them about, you know, losing your key, about, you know, the potential down the line for files to be corrupted, or, you know, the assets not to load. But, you know, in the physical art world, there's, you know, equal amount of, maybe not equal, but there are also, you know, challenges such as artwork getting damaged or lost in shipping and other stuff. So I kind of think with any type of investment or asset, there's always some inherent risk with it.
Curious, is there an insurance? Because I know a lot of artwork is then backed by insurance. Have people started insuring NFTs? I'm just more curious, has that happened yet? Or that world? Is there insurance for the digital Bitcoin?
There is insurance for custody. So people that are in the custody business do have insurance policies. But again, the devil's in the details with regard to what does it cover. But there's a very, it's a growing segment of the market for insurance coverage of custody.
Great, thank you. So we actually have a Stamps alum, Julie Eisenberg Pittman, who's in the meeting. And she recently minted her work to be included in an NFT show in New York City at the Super Chief Gallery. So Julie, if you can unmute yourself, we'd love to hear a little bit about the process and how it's worked out, and, you know, from the artist perspective.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Julie.
Hi, can you see me?
No, unfortunately not, but we can hear you.
Okay, hi. Yeah, so I was invited to be in this show in downtown Manhattan at the Super Chief Gallery on 11th Street. And my piece was an artwork that I did in 2016, collage piece that I had digitized and made into, I put some motion graphics in it. Since it was going to be a digital piece on a screen in the show. And then I minted it. I opened a Bitcoin account, and voila, it was in the show. And it was a really interesting, eye-opening experience. I was definitely a little nervous going into it, but once they really held our hand, and we had a lot of info sessions for all the artists in the show beforehand to take us through it step by step. And in the end, there was really nothing to it, meaning I was happy to be a part of it. My work gained a lot of notoriety. The show was amazing. It was in a dark space, the gallery, and each artist had about 3 minutes per screen. And then it would go on to some other artists showing, and there were many screens in the gallery, and all the screens were different sizes. So it was a super dynamic show, and it was also really fun. It pushed me to digitize my piece and then put motion graphics to it. So it took a stagnant collage piece, and then I was able to make it move again. So that was sort of a surreal surprise to me that I didn't see coming. And then the actual piece went to London to a show at the Copeland Gallery. So that was also another component in it that was really very interesting, because the actual piece was moving elsewhere and it was still alive, and it was used in all the marketing material. So it got a lot of press for that. And yeah, I really enjoyed the whole experience. There were some questions that really made me think, like, okay, so this digitized piece is now given a number. And if I slightly change the artwork and give it another number, can I sell that? Because it's slightly different and it has another number. I don't know, I definitely was thinking a lot about, because, my whole career has been with tangible art, and was bought with money. And so this is a whole nother realm to launch into and to really wrap my mind around.
Well, thanks, Julie. And maybe adding to your kind of questions and thoughts, and then I want to hear from the panelists. There are two questions from the audience. One, kind of on that idea of changing it, the question of plagiarism. This is from Dorothy Yin. How strict are plagiarism regulations, if any, since sometimes artistic plagiarism can be pretty subjective and controversial? So I want to add that to sort of Julie's sort of idea. What if I change it just a bit, change it by a number? Is that a new work or not? And then on the idea of value, Olivia asks, given the multitude of NFTs and the fact that anyone can create and sell them, how do you value an NFT? Who determines what that value is of any given NFT? And is it considered another asset if your crypto portfolio, is it considered another asset in your crypto portfolio? Is it hard to liquidate an NFT? Kind of related. I want to open it up to the panelists.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chelsea.
Well, I was just going to answer from the perspective of an artist or the art world. I think that with anything, the idea of value is an issue of supply and demand. And so what we have been telling artists is and I've seen some questions like, should we jump on this bandwagon? Is it going to appreciate? And I would urge people to think of it, or artists to think of it as a medium that you're interested in exploring. I wouldn't necessarily jump on the bandwagon if it doesn't call you. It's like telling a sculptor to become a painter. That's not going to serve you if that's not what you're interested in. In terms of changing a piece slightly and selling it again, that would only, as an artist and someone who can create creating multiples of something would only decrease the value of the one original thing. So yeah, that's kind of my perspective. Darren?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, well, two things. One about plagiarism, copyright rules really protect against that. I know that there's been a lot of work around fair use and what is the, how far do you have to move the art from its original state to a target state to really identify new artistic impression. But, with regard to duplication or just changing something slightly, I would say that's what prints are really. Andy Warhol did lots of prints and they're all slightly different, but he did a lot of them and he made a lot of money on it. So, there's certainly the uniqueness and the scarcity aspect of it, but there's also perhaps a different way to think about it for a broader audience. So.
The last thing I'll add is just that in terms of the value of art, really the value of NFTs comes from what other people would be willing to pay to buy it from you. So a lot of that is subjective, a lot of it is speculative. So, no one knows what's going to happen with NFTs and the value. I think at this point, people are buying them, like any other investment in hopes that they'll appreciate over time. And a lot of it has to do with, the pride of being early adopter and the community around this space that's growing. So I do think that a lot of the buying and selling in this space is not just with the lens of, this is a great investment. A lot of it, is these other factors that are contributing. And then of course, and also the being able to support these digital artists by, buying their work. So I think those are all other factors that the people that are, collectors or just active buyers in the space are thinking about, not just let me buy all these NFTs because they're going to be worth a lot one day. But that is, some are and some aren't. So people are just kind of using their own judgment there.
Julie, I think you had a comment or something, if you can unmute yourself.
I just wanted to add that, it did bring it to a new level of, taking a static collage and then digitizing it. And then once I did that, I saw that I was really excited by the motion graphics. And I thought if I did change those motion graphics per minting piece, it would change it a lot. So as you were saying, like printing a Warhol piece, prints, each print is unique. And I felt that way about the digital version, but it did also, mess with my mind a bit and thinking that, okay, this is just a number assigned to it. And how do I feel about that? As far as, it going on and living. Another thing I wanted to add is that, recently I did some audio in my house and the audio people asked if I wanted a screen on my wall to show artwork. And way back then I thought, no, I don't want to look at artwork on a screen. But after this show, the digital show, I really enjoyed it, and it made me think of it in a different way, and possibly rethink that. So that's really it. Thank you.
I would just add one comment. When I was in college, the resolution on a TV was very different than the resolution on a TV today. So I think you are getting to the point where you can get some really dynamic pop from digital screens. And I do think that digital art is going to become more and more mainstream in people's homes.
Yeah, to Darren's point, a lot of startups are coming up that sell, digital frames and different variations of that for you to display your NFTs at home. So, that's a new mechanism to be able to kind of show your investments in a similar way to what you're doing with, you're investing in traditional art. So I think things like that, things like, you know, the gallery exhibit that Julie was a part of, which sounds really cool. And we're gonna probably see more and more of those proliferations, which will kind of take this new technology a little bit more into the mainstream and intersect with the art world.
I'll continue taking some questions from the audience. So Anne LaRouche asks, is NFT the solution for remuneration of an artist's installation and legacy protection in case art is destroyed? Say when Busi auctions off a piece of art that self-destructs, which happened, would owning the NFT protect the investment, make the bidder whole? So does an NFT still preclude, at some point, does the NFT almost separate from the work itself? So even if it's destroyed, you have an NFT maintaining a kind of authenticity, a certificate of value.
So yes, it would, but you know, I would say that, you know, for the Banksy that it got stuck in the shredder, I almost feel like that is now worth a lot more. So an NFT, if you had an NFT that would authenticate it, perhaps if it was partially shred, that unit or that piece of art would be worth just a little bit less, as opposed to the Banksy that shredded in front of everyone, which, you know, captured everyone's imagination.
And maybe you guys can clarify, an NFT is not art, right? I think there's a tendency to sort of mix them, or is it like, how should we really be thinking through it? Is the NFT more the certificate of authenticity and then the ledger and the accounting system that, or is it itself, you know, is it a pointer or is it the thing?
It's a token, and the way that artists are using it today is the token that they're minting is the artwork. The way that Tappan is using it as a certificate is slightly different because we're connecting it to a physical piece of artwork. So in the Banksy example, there would be the original work, and then there would also be an NFT COA authenticating that. So an NFT is not an artwork. An NFT can be a baseball card. An NFT can be an artwork.
So, you know, it can be really both. So in the case of Chelsea's, you know, they authenticate that the piece of art is what it is. You could take a video clip and make an NFT of it, which makes that the actual piece of art that is then being sold. So it's definitely a little confusing, but it can be done both ways.
Right.
I'm going to actually, again, open it up to the audience. Maybe Christian or Laine, you can help me here. Walk through some of the other questions that have been asked.
Well, yes. Well, we do have one. What are the best platforms to release pieces on?
We have an artist, his name's Daniel Webster, who's in MoMA. He's using our client blockchain made easy in order to tokenize his art and sell it through their platform. But there are many platforms that are coming out or that are already out there. So it really is going to come down to you know, price points, you know, how are you looking to engage with your audience? Are you looking for distribution, or are you, you know, an influencer and you have your own distribution? So I think there's a couple different things to kind of break down on how you want to use the tools so that you can accomplish your goals.
So just on that one about distribution, do these you know, like organizations like Foundation actually market the NFTs, or they're just minting it. Chelsea or Rachel, maybe you know, or Darren, are they helping in the kind of marketing of the NFT?
Foundation, as an example, is a marketplace. So if you're interested in purchasing NFTs, you can go there, browse it, and buy a piece of artwork. So they're not acting so much as like a gallery or promoting any one particular, but they are making it very accessible and possible from both the collector and the buyer and the artist. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Christian, Laine, any?
Yeah, a question. Actually, we had a lot of questions of this nature, which is, as like an artist and designer, how do you go about making this like a sustainable source of income? Like, and is there any advice you can give in terms of where to start and like what you need to look out for?
I think, like selling any artwork sustainably, that is definitely a challenge. I would say some places to start would be finding outlets that are selling artwork similar to what you're making, finding your audience, finding the right platform for your work to thrive, understanding where you lie in the landscape so that you're pricing yourself appropriately, and then using your social media or whatever marketing outlets you have to build your audience, to build your following, to build demand for your work, and then hopefully appreciate in price, appreciate in demand, and make that a steady flow. That's the dream, I think.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just gonna say, to add on to what Chelsea kind of insinuated earlier, NFTs, while they're a new kind of channel and almost like a new medium that artists can leverage, it's not necessarily a silver bullet that, hey, let me transfer my art, mint it as an NFT and suddenly, more people are going to want to buy it necessarily. I think the beauty in kind of art as NFTs is that it does democratize access to some extent, that you can reach, a different audience than you might have reached with your physical manifestations of your art. But similar, challenges exist to kind of getting your name out there, finding the right type of buyer, and pricing are also challenges in the NFT world, as that you would have in the physical art world as well.
Yeah, and I would say, you're your best marketer. So you need to bring in your audience, whether it's a physical piece of art, a digital piece of art, or an NFT. You still need an audience that wants to buy your art. So it starts there. But I would then also say, I would, for NFTs, because they are reasonably inexpensive to mint, I would just do it. Like, start making NFTs. The best way to learn how you can use it as a tool for you is to break some glass and to actually create an NFT and see where it goes and learn from doing it. And you'll probably be the next person on the panel, because there's not a lot of people that have done it.
And to Darren's point, I read, I heard an interview with people, and he didn't think that, he put out the NFT that, auctioned off for 69 million. He wasn't expecting that. I think the price was set at like, several $100s, and it was bid up that high. So I think sometimes you just never know. So I encourage just testing it out and kind of testing it out on these early adopters that are interested in purchasing art in the space.
Christian?
Yes, I'm sorry. I do have a very interestingly worded question. Do you think NFTs are going to fully penetrate the art world? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And how does the increasing presence of NFTs disrupt the art world in terms of buying art and the role that galleries and art dealers play in the art market?
I think it really creates a force multiplier for art. You know, so much about artists is that they only have one painting, or if they're able to do prints, they're able to create more of it. But I think this is a great tool for artists to achieve broader distribution. So I think from that perspective, you know, being able to get your artwork out to more people electronically, I think this is a great way to do it. And ultimately, that's what drives the people that will follow you and will drive demand, and ultimately will drive pricing higher and your relevance.
So an interesting, oh, please, Chelsea, go
No,
ahead.
please, no, go ahead.
And I was going to ask the next question, and since you guys are all alums, and I might even chime in, but you know, someone asked, tying it, Abby Burr asked, tying it back to art school, what sort of class or subject would you see NFTs being taught in? Should it be in business school or in fine arts or art and technology? Where, you know, thinking about pedagogy, where should we be talking about NFTs? All of the above, huh?
Yeah. If there, I mean, I don't think there was art and technology when I was there. That sounds like the right place. But also in business school, because it's, again, it's not just applicable to art. I saw in some of the chat, somebody was mentioning the use case for, I'm sorry, for copyright under, or musical work for archiving. Oh, Melissa is an entertainment lawyer. And the use of NFTs could be really powerful in many different industries when it comes to tracking and transferring ownership. How artists can use it to their benefit, also very, very important. And I think that's something that we probably didn't talk a lot about, which is this idea of royalties, and how in creating an NFT, you have the opportunity to include in the smart contract, like we put a 10% royalty. So every time the artwork is transferred, or the music is played, or, you know, ownership is transferred, there is payback to the original artist. And I think that's a really, really powerful, you know, kind of game-changing part of this for the arts industries, be it writing, music, art, anything.
Yeah, and just, you know, to echo that, you know, probably the earliest version of an NFT was a watermark.
Right.
So, you know, you would have these pictures and you would see the watermark across it, and it would protect someone to, you know, just go to a website, take a picture of it and use it themselves. But now the NFT, which is embedded in the picture, as Chelsea said, every time you send it, that NFT is always knowing what, and can tell the source how many times it's been moved and how many times it's gone from A to B to C. You know, when you think about Napster and what it did to music, and how people were able to just download music and no one knew, because there was no watermark in place, there was no NFT in place to track all of that momentum. Now you can, which is super powerful, I think. So, you know, when you look at the future, and again, another tool in the arsenal for artists of all kinds to monetize, to recognize their value. You know, on Napster, an artist would never know how many times it was downloaded. Now with an NFT, they actually have a sense of what their value is, because they can see how many times their music has been downloaded. If unfortunately your music isn't downloaded, or your picture's not, you know, consumed, you know, maybe try a different variety and see if you can spark interest that way.
Rachel, any kind of thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think, you know, to echo what everyone else has said, there are just so many implications of NFTs and how the technology can use and the industries that you can and will disrupt. It could be talked about in so many different courses, in a law course, in a technology and society course, in an entrepreneurship course. So, you know, I think people, you know, there are many different angles you could take. You could learn about the technology, you could learn about how can you use it for business, you could learn about how can you use it for supply chain and tracking things and or keeping track of things from a legal perspective. So yeah, it's really interesting. I'd be curious to know if there are any courses that already are talking about this, but I would definitely hope so.
I heard Osmond's doing a class next semester on NFT.
That's right, and all three of you are invited to give talks at the class. Look for a whole bunch of stamped and NFTs coming up. So I think we're kind of rounding time. Any last thoughts from the three of you? Any last sort of comments you want to make about NFTs or the bigger ecosystem that it's now creating, the future for artists that has opened up? Chelsea, I know you mentioned the sort of, really the great part of it is the sort of smart contract. You know, I'm seeing beyond the hype, in a way, the hype's actually ruining it because it seems like a rich person's and money laundering. It seems very fishy, but kind of behind that, there's a really powerful tool that will really probably benefit a lot of us in different ways. But any last thoughts before we kind of wrap it up?
No, I mean, I think that's the most powerful. That's the most powerful part, just the provenance for the artist and the different ways, like Darren and Rachel were saying, that it can be used across industries. Even environmentally, you can track the production flow, you know, using NFTs. So I guess just urging everyone to take a look, see if it piques your interest, try it, like Darren said, and yeah, and good luck, I think.
Yeah, I would say, you know, get out there and do it. And, you know, I'm sure you're going to learn a lot about the experience, best ways to market it. But I think for, you know, art school and business school folks, it's a really interesting world that's, you know, you've had cryptocurrency that achieved product market fit. NFT has been the next area that's achieved product market fit. And I think from that perspective, there's only going to be more and more of it. So get out there and do it and get in the middle of it.
Yeah, I love that. And just not just do it, you know, continue to learn about it, keep reading, you know, it's constantly in the news. And I think already just by being at this event, you're a bit ahead of the curve, trying to, you know, educate yourselves and learn more about it and the different implications of the technology. So yeah, thank you all for being here.
Well, Chelsea, Rachel, Darren, thank you so much. Really, really informative and, you know, on a topic that's really of our times and of our future. And like I said, we cut through a lot of the hype to really realize that this is something of importance and for all of us to be looking at it and understanding our role or how do we want to interact with this sort of new platform. So thank you all three of you for joining us today. And I know we weren't able to get to everyone's questions, but thank you all for listening and participating. Really, it was a really informative panel. So again, thank you three, and thank you to the audience. And now, Christian, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let Laine close us out.
Thank you, Osman, for moderating the event, and to my fellow U of M student Christian for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, most importantly, our alumni panelists for taking the time to talk with us today. This conversation has offered us an opportunity to come together as a community, and I appreciate that all of you were able to connect with us, even though NFTs are, you know, it's very complicated. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. We'll send out the recording after this for you to watch or share. Thank you again for taking the time today and have a great afternoon.